to our third and final topic. Ashton, this is your topic. What makes a next-gen game a next-gen game? What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I think it's like I think that's kind of up in the air with a lot of people right now. Is like what makes a next-gen game a next-gen game. And it's a lot of it's gonna be based off of like personal opinion. Technically, the first next-gen exclusive game is a medium, right? Or was the Spider-Man Miles Morales PS5 only?
Spider-Man was on PS4. He could play it on PS4. So I guess
Miles Morales was?
yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the medium, and we could talk about that very shortly, why it was only a next-gen title game, because it was for power requirements, and that's literally because the game has two instances running simultaneously at all times, or most of the time. Whenever you have that split happen, it is literally the game is running twice, but differently.
Yeah,
it's not
it's
as
the same
simple as like a filter mirror effect. They are actually rendering.
Well, I mean, in a game that has a mirror, in order for a mirror to work, you do actually have to render two characters in at the same time. The game has to do that. So yeah, now you're right. Yeah, it's like now the game is doing that the whole time. So which is pretty crazy.
So it's it's not when you play it, you don't think of it as like, oh yeah, this is next gen. But what you see what they're doing under the hood, like behind the curtains, that is only able to be done with next gen stuff. So it does have ray trace reflections in it, which are really good. It's direct X ray tracing as well on the Series X. It's good ray tracing on the Series X. But there are parts where obviously, it has its launch bugs and stuff and performance issues. It doesn't run a solid 60 100% of the time from when I played it, when I streamed it. But that can be fixed because it's supposed to. That's their target, and that's what they're going to hit with some patches. But people play that, and they don't think of it as an next-gen experience. But really what that is kind of like a testament for people who are in the developer scene. Like, holy shit, wow, you were able to do that? Your tiny studio was able to do that? That's fucking crazy. Okay, we can actually do some crazy shit with this thing. But out of this next-gen console, what are we actually expecting to happen? Like, just everything looking like Red Dead Redemption 2? Like, does it get better looking than Red Dead 2 and Cyberpunk when it finally, has its shit together?
Yeah.
Because... on the Series X and PC, the game looks great for Cyberpunk. That's a next-gen game. That is a next-gen game once it's all fixed. That will be a 100% next-gen game. But what are like the clear indicators? That's going to differ from person to person because everybody, you're not seeing a huge jump in terms of like 4K and 1080. It's not like the biggest jump in the world. I mean, you're going to notice it, but it's whatever. Frames are super important. That's new for consoles. Getting up to 60 frames as a standard.
No, see, I don't think we're going 60. I think we're skipping that. I think the standard for next gen game, like in my eyes, if I was to look at a menu and go like, these are the games that I'm gonna decide as like, these are the games that I think are next gen, is you have to go 4K HDR minimum. And you got to go 120.
See, I think that'll happen for first party games, but I don't think it'll happen for third.
I don't think it won't happen for third until the consoles are available for everyone, because we're just running into that idea of these consoles. Because I was just talking with Nate about this, my roommate, of like, there's no need, and people ask you and me both. I'm assuming you get the question as well. Which console should I get? That's the other thing too. We got to dissect that question too. Is like, what console should I get? And honestly, I don't think you need any of them. You don't need any of these consoles right now, because all the games are coming to 1 and 4 still. So it's like, you don't need, especially
you don't need it for the next year.
Yeah, so, and especially if you have an Xbox One X, if you have a One X, no, you're done. You're fine. Yeah. You're set for a pretty good amount of time.
Yeah, you're set for a couple of years if you have the One X. Because I mean, you're not gonna be able to do 4K 60 on it because
No.
it's checkerboarded 4K if you do 60. Um, it's not native when you're running the high frame rate, but you can do 1080 60 no problem for most games that have it enhanced, have that patch out. So as far as PS4 Pro, I don't know how significant that was. I didn't have PS4 at all.
The
Um,
PS4 does do the 4K in a
how well
way.
does it run the 60 frames though?
Spider-Man runs great. If you have a nice TV and you run that on a pretty
Didn't
good
you also play like
display.
Battlefront on there? Star Wars Battlefront?
I did, and that look, the textures and that game looks great in HDR. If you play that in a 4K HDR monitor or TV, the game looks really really good.
So if you have PS4 Pro or Xbox One X, the consensus is like you can wait a couple years.
Oh yeah, I think you're good for another
Yeah.
year, honestly. And because the thing is first off, the consoles aren't available. They're just not. And when they are, it's a bitch and a half to get them, and people are assholes about them. So it's like I don't think the normal consumer is going to be able to get these things probably until next year. Like I don't think these
Yeah.
things are coming out because they're just going to have to. The only
There's a
way
huge
that these
scalper problem. So
yeah, and the only way that these are going to be coming out is, and for people to get them, is if they just super mass produce them, which I honestly think is going to turn out terrible because they're going to freak out and make the console, and then eventually all of a sudden we start getting red rings of death on both of them. So
well, not necessarily because I mean they're all built right. Like they already have engineering. They've done testing. They made sure that Red Rings of Death thing was more of a heating issue, an overheating issue.
yeah.
Right.
I'm just
We're not gonna
saying,
be
like
running into issues
the
like
in
that.
general, like idea of a red ring, like
It's not gonna be like
maybe not that
factory
specific.
defect.
Yeah, I don't know. It
No.
like to me is if hopefully it doesn't happen, but like I just the fact that they're just not available is making these companies like Ubisoft and EA and the third parties and things like that that are just like, hey, we could make Assassin's Creed 78 on on the next gen game on the next gen consoles, but that's like such a minority of our uh selling platform here that we might as well just make it for the past gen. Like, and they're still classifying PS5 and Xbox Series as the next gen. No one's saying that that's our current gen right now. They're just saying that's our
'cause most
next gen
people are
consoles.
still on last gen.
Yeah, so it's like they're saying the current gen right now is still Xbox One and PS4. So
And the other side of that is that usually when a next gen console comes out, they'll have like a couple games out that'll actually be truly next gen, like with graphics. Like you're able to tell by looking at it and playing it, like, oh, this is a next gen experience. Those usually don't start funneling through and becoming the norm until like after towards the end of the second year of the next gen's release, where most people have the console and then those games are actually funneling in, right?
Mhm.
So it's pretty normal when the next generation comes out for it not to be considered like the current gen, because it still feels new because not everybody has it. But in this case, it's even worse because scalping is a fucking huge issue this time around. It's so bad.
Well,
It
it's
is
just
so
like
fucking bad.
everyone. I blame COVID for multiple things, but I think this is definitely one of the other things. Everyone wants to get money. Everyone wants to get theirs right now. That's like the theme of right now. Like end of 2020 to now, everyone wants to get theirs. It's happening with fucking Pokemon cards. It's happening with the consoles. It's happening with stocks. It's like everyone just wants to get money right now. And if they can buy a PS5 when it comes out on Best Buy at this weird time of the day, and they snag it for $400 and flip it on eBay for $1,000, then they're gonna do it. As long as there's money to be made, there's money that's gonna be made. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's still the moms and dads of America that would just be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna buy the $1,000 version of this game or this console. Even I know how much it is, but I don't want to wait anymore. I'm just gonna buy it. So I mean, yeah, I think when you go back to the topic that you're trying to do, what makes the game a next gen game? I don't think we're seeing that right now. We're just not
I
gonna
don't
see
think
it.
so either. I honestly don't think that we're going to be seeing it now. Here's the thing that everybody's trying to push.
Maybe Forza Motorsport. That might be it.
Maybe, but I mean, like, here's the thing that everybody's trying to push that is like crazy next gen is that each next generation, they keep making player lobbies bigger, but I don't think that's a hardware thing. That's a networking thing, right? It's not. You're not going to be rendering 200 people all at once. Like there's going to be what, like 256 player lobbies in the next Battlefield or some shit like that.
Allegedly, they just said it's the biggest.
That's
It's the biggest
yeah,
that they've
the
ever done.
biggest. No, that's what the number everybody's going to for whatever weird reason. But realistically, you're not going to see all those people on screen at once, right? You're like max that you'll probably end up seeing, fucking like 50 of them, like all on one screen, and it's not even going to be like they're all up close on your screen where it's going to be in crazy detail. You're not needing next gen power to be able to do that. Is my thoughts, because that's a networking thing. That has nothing to do with like your graphics card. Because like look at like the requirements for Fall Guys. I mean, they have a big, it's a pretty simple game, mind you, and the art style is pretty simple, low poly and all that, but it's like, it's more of a networking thing. I mean, there's games. I think, my cousin Michael was talking about this one game. God, I forget what it's called. It's on like PlayStation where you could have like 150 player lobbies, like back in the day. And it's like, yeah, they're able to do that back then on like very low like hardware, low grade stuff.
And it could be also with
PS3, PS4
textures
days.
and things like that as well.
Yeah, but it's like,
but yeah.
it's optimization at the end of the day, sure, for like your graphics, but most of that's going to be on the networking side. Just having that many connections. That load going into that one server there. That's what everybody's like using as a standard too going forward, which I don't quite understand. But again, I don't make games, so I don't truly know. But I feel like that's just kind of like a reach. But I'm thinking like we're gonna be seeing. I want to see the most smooth gameplay. I want to see 120 frames per second. I want to see 4K HDR. I want to see all that shit happening all the time, and I want these really rich worlds and not overused textures that the map actually looks the exact same everywhere you go. I want there to be some sort of like, because oftentimes, I mean, you're gonna be looking at these textures and they look good, but there's gonna be parts of it where it's like very flat. You know what I mean? Like it looks literally like it was painted on, and not PBR textures, which allows light to bounce off of like the cracks and stuff like that, so it looks more realistic. It's not a paint on texture, it is like a live texture. Like you can actually, water would be able to fall into like the crack of the texture on the rock and like spill out a certain way, because that's what it does. Like bricks and shit, would have PBR textures, a little the mortar, where it's little divots where the mortar is like holding the bricks together. Like light would bounce off of that differently, because it has a different depth. It's not all one painted on texture. We need more PBR textures in games.
I mean what was it, the Unreal Engine trailer that I think PlayStation played at their I can't remember what they showed it at. I think it was that their like E3 thing. Their like E3 sort of thing that they did last year. That wasn't E3, but it was still E3. And they showed the Unreal Engine, the Epic engine that they did, and it was pretty good. Like I guess that's a game that they're gonna be making with it.
Right.
But I mean that yeah, I would say that would be pretty next gen if they're able to do something like that graphically. I mean, that's always what we look for, right? Is when a next gen comes out, is like, where's the graphics? How good are the graphics going to be? And it's like, well, some of these games don't even need that. Like, I've been playing Valheim, and that game is not the prettiest game sometimes, because that's the art style of it. It's just they're polygonic looking people. That's just how it is.
That's a PC game.
That is a PC game, but that would also that also holds them back a little bit more of like, why didn't you make it so grand? Well, there's only like a couple people making it. Or when you got Phasmophobia, and it's like, that game has some funny bugs every once in a while. It runs 99% of the time, but there's some funny like glitch of a person that clips through
Right.
like a wall or something like that. Um, and
Yeah, it's not always needed for success, though.
yeah, it's
You know,
not
I
needed for
see what
success.
you're
So
getting at.
it's like, okay, so then do we wipe away that graphics are mandatory to put into next gen? And then
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. With you got to look at PC and console culture differently because they are two different beasts. Because yeah, they'll share some of the same games, but PC players aren't, typically compared to console players are all about new shiny because next
yes,
generation. There's always hype about
and
next
that's usually the
generation.
common dweller as well. Like those are the
Yeah.
people they're gonna buy the box. They don't want to. They're like, I'd rather just buy my $500 Xbox and call it a day. And it's like, all right, well, you
Yep. All
could
I need
if
is
you want
Call
to
of
make it
Duty,
look.
and I'm good to go.
Yeah, if you want to play Call of Duty and Madden, and that's all I need. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, and that's the thing is like those games are just going to constantly keep getting better because they're essentially the same game upgraded for the next gen or the next
Yeah.
game and the next game and the next game
Yeah.
and the next game.
Exactly.
Which isn't bad. That's just how those games are made. So a lot of people will kind of fall off of them and then continue on about a year and a half later because Call of Duty has now fallen into this cycle of things. But the yeah, I mean, I think that it really comes down to frame rate. I think that's something that console players have not been able to get access to. So if your game is running 120 frames a second, I mean, hell, some monitors don't even do that still. So it's kind of the thing. But
Yeah.
still, that's you need something that really shocks somebody and goes, holy shit. Like this
Yeah.
this is fucking crazy. Like when I played Forza Horizon 4 on the Xbox One. Or no. I played it on the Series X. Or sorry, One
No,
X.
the One X.
One X.
Yeah.
The One X, the Xbox One X. And I played that and I hit the dunes for the first time on my 4K TV. That was, oh my god. Like that's crazy. It looks gorgeous. And then I played Gears 5 and I was like, "Oh my god, this game looks on the One X." And I was like, "This is the reason why I bought the Scorpio. This is the
Right.
reason why it looks fucking great." And you wouldn't get that on like a fatty Xbox. You don't get that on that. And then I have not yet seen that on this gen. And what I've been
No.
told from Nate is that apparently the third parties are still just making one game. They're copy pasting of here's a PS5, here's the Xbox, those are the versions. So
Yeah.
in actuality, on paper, as we've talked about numerous times before, the Xbox Series X is more powerful than the PS5. But you're not going to know that yet because they're still just making the same game they're going with the PS5 specs so that it runs on the PS5.
So yeah, they need to. So console developers, they need to start doing what PC developers do and just make it to where there's different settings, and just make it way simpler. You can make one. You can literally make one version of the game, and just have it to where they can tweak their settings to fit their build. Like that would be the easiest way to do that. But they don't want to do it that way for whatever reason that may be. They don't want to do that. I don't know the reason why, because it seems like it'd be pretty straightforward. Like, hey, you pick your resolution. It'll autofill based off of what your current TV setting is and what your console is able to handle. It'll pull that data from what your console is saying that it is running on currently. Yeah, I'm plugged into a 4K display. You'll see that in your Xbox settings and your PlayStation settings, what type of display you're hooked up to. And hey, I can turn 4K on, can turn HDR on, can turn on all that stuff. It can pull that information from your console. They would literally just have to do that. And it's like also the same thing too is like on PC. Like when I'm hooked up to my just my laptop, it'll auto fill to like 1080 60. And then when I go to my monitor, it'll be like, oh, you have 120 hertz on that, so we'll just put you at 120 hertz. Like it can be done. It's just for whatever reason they want to make like 7 different versions of a game and make it way more difficult
Well, I mean,
because
and
of
that's
optimization.
but that's the thing is like it really comes down to what's holding back video games right now is the past gen is Xbox One and PS4. Like until we
Yeah.
get rid of those, until Microsoft goes stop making these games and just make it for our new consoles. Make it for the Series X, make it for the Series S. Just make it for those consoles. Kill the Xbox One. Until that happens, they will not the third party is going to keep making those games and it's going to restrict them. That's part of the reason why Cyberpunk probably slightly failed, amongst other things, but we're going to talk about this
Yeah.
specific thing here. Is because they were trying to make it for those consoles and they don't fucking work. That is not how you play that fucking game. Do not play that. If you don't have a PS4, I don't even know what pros look like, but I know what a PS4 like fatty version, the original PS4s, and then it just sounds like a jet engine and it doesn't run. It looks like a fucking potato. And then the Xbox One, God forbid you play it on an original Xbox One that doesn't even play at 1080p because that's like 980 by whatever the fuck. Yeah, those don't play. That game was not. It just can't do it. It just can't run on those consoles. And until until both companies, Sony and Microsoft, I honestly think they're just holding off and telling them, yeah, just keep making for the past gen, and then the third party's going, yep, we're gonna keep doing that too because we want to make fucking money, and if we're gonna just keep making it for your small group that was able to get the console, we're not gonna make our money back. So I mean, they're probably gonna, but they're just not gonna do enough efficiency
As well. Yeah, it's definitely holding everything back for sure, and it does not help that there's a huge shortage too, so it's really just really bad for the gaming industry right now as a whole, just because like it's a new generation, everybody's trying to get the new console. There's shortages already, partially due to COVID, and then you also have this scalping bullshit, opportunistic people just ruining it for everybody else. So it's like it's very low percentage of people actually have these next generation consoles and probably aren't going to have them in the foreseeable future because of all these bot accounts that just keep autofilling all this stuff and getting all of the fucking consoles as soon as they go live. Like it is insane. So I don't know. It's definitely one of those things where there's not a whole lot to do about it other than just like figure out the whole like situation when it comes to how they're going to be coding for these games. Like, do they keep making multiple versions of the game, optimizing it specifically for each console? Which, if they are stretched for time or just don't feel like doing it, they'll just copy paste everything and it'll work on your console or it won't, and we'll fix it later. They could do that, or they could start moving in the direction where, like, PC only developers, they will just have it to where it's just you're going to be able to pick the options based off of your build, like what's going to be able to handle it. And it'll tell you exactly what it does. Like, hey, do you want like your VSync G-Sync on? Like, this is what this does. Little description. Like, get that more in the console industry. Make it way easier for everybody to put out these games at their best, and you just water down the settings yourself to make sure that it runs good for you. Like,
yeah, I think
all it takes.
Yeah, I mean, as much as that is easy for us to say as PC people as well, I mean, we have decent. I think it comes down to both PlayStation and Xbox making it so that it's like we want the game to run on everything the same. So if it either runs great or it runs shit. Like that's what they're like, and I'm not saying that's the right path. I'm just saying that's kind of what they're kind of attacking here. Is it's either gonna do really well or it's gonna not do very well. Yeah, I mean, just to max out, and what puts it in even sort of a split table here is Xbox has two consoles as well as PlayStation does, but with Xbox specifically, one of them isn't as great as the other one is, but it does have the enhancements. And the games, as we've clearly seen, have they know what console you're playing on. They know that you're playing on an S, so they're not going to run it at the X standards. Well, so I don't know. It's weird.
I think it would be really easy If they were to do it like that route with the PC, like how they do it on PC, where you like it'll just autofill for what your system already has on it, they could just have it set to where like you'll have different options available. Like you'll have a Series X option, Series S option. Like, it'll tell you, hey, this is yours for that, or you can make a custom one and you can do it yourself. However, not that there would be much of a point to that, because I mean your build is pretty set in stone.
Yeah.
But like just being able to see, like it'll set you up for those settings. Like they'll just have different texture settings and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean there are games that are implementing that a little bit, where now there's the performance option or the high resolution option or the frame rate option. So like they're giving you the option. Like that's about as much as those console settings are letting you do, is like, do you want high frame rate or do you want high textures? Like, do you want 4K or do you want high frame rate? And honestly, I think it's going to come down to, to answer your question for me specifically, just kind of wrap things up here, and I'll let you kind of finish out for your topic. But what makes a next gen game is when I don't have to make that decision, when it just is gonna run, when I don't have to make the decision of do I choose frame rate or resolution, which one do I do? If I can it just runs the best as it possibly can be at 4K 120, then I think that's what it is. I mean, these consoles both say that they can run 8K. We just don't have that yet. So it's like,
you have it for Ori.
Is it run 8K seriously?
Yeah, it does.
That's crazy. So anyway, but it's like, until that's far down the road, and I don't even think that that's next gen. I think that's next gen, but I mean, it's obviously going to be an upgrade. It's not necessarily, because these consoles have clearly stated that they are going to be here for a while. So, but yeah, I think that for me, what makes next gen gaming, or a next gen game is when I can just play at the best quality I possibly can, and I don't have to make the decision and the sacrifice of, oh, well, I guess I'm going to go high frame rate and I guess I'm going to play at 1080p.
Yeah.
When I can play at 4K 120, that's when I say we have finally hit a next gen game.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. That's a good baseline. Like, this is where it needs to be, and it needs to be eye candy. If we're talking next gen, we're talking graphics, we're talking performance. You don't want to have to fiddle with the settings. You just want it to go and look amazing all the time, no hiccups. You give it that grace period in the launch, and then after that, it should be doing perfect. It should be wowing you. Environment should be alive. I want to see shit that my eyes don't deserve to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's I want those wow moments. The like, oh my gosh, this game looks crazy cool.
By the way, have you seen Sea of Thieves at 4K?
Yeah.
60?
Yep.
Oh my god, the water.
Yeah. No, I want to play Sea of Thieves on stream at some point, but
I know you PC Master Race people are like, oh, whatever, I've been doing that for years. Like, let us have this.
Yeah, it definitely looks really, really good. 4K 60
it looks
great.
Insane.
Yeah,
like the water in that game, man, it is insane.
Mm-hmm.
So, the other thing too is we need availability for smaller TVs and monitors with HDMI 2.1.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily towards these guys. That's more towards the Samsung and the Sony and like.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
Alienware and
it's hard to get as a console. Just because the price is so high.
Yeah.
They're very difficult to get. And there's maybe like 3 of them.
Yeah, and then they're really expensive too. Yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything? Those your final words there?
That's it. Famous last words.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up this episode of Bitcade. If you guys want to watch more, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, you're watching the video version of it, please hit that subscribe button. Stick around. We got a whole bunch of content that's coming your way. There's a lot. There's a lot in the back burner. I have a lot in the catalog here, and I'm trying to get through it all so we can get content over here on YouTube. Our main focus over the last couple of months has been mainly twitch.tv/primal_target. Ashton, you want to give the full sell there if you don't mind?
Yeah, I stream Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, except for tonight. Oops. until whenever the fuck I feel like getting off, which usually means a minimum of 4 hours. And then Ryan streams Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, typically, until about 11.
Yep.
Is that about right? Yeah.
Yep. That's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to be a part of PT Nation, you want to watch us live over there on Twitch, the link is in the description below for you guys on YouTube. And it is a fun time over there. And we're on our road to 200 right now. That is our next goal.
Yes.
Ashton, at this current moment in time, we've hopefully surpassed it at this point. But what is our number currently right now?
187.
187. See, we're almost there. Get us over that 200 mark. Have fun. Chill out with us. Talk in the chat with us. We love playing video games for y'all.
Join our Discord.
Yes, join our Discord. You want to give the plug for that too? I guess you
in
can't
the
really do
description.
that. Like, yeah, it's in the description. Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, is there like a? Can you
Primal
search
Target
people?
Discord.
Yeah, it's just Primal Target. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's our same logo everywhere, so we have the same logo, and that's where it goes. You can
There'll
follow
be
me.
an invite for you down there.
Yeah. You can follow me personally at Ryan A. Moore. You can follow him personally at.
Sticky Ash _, I think.
Okay. You think? you changed your Twitter handle.
Sticky _Ash.
There you
The
go.
underscore's different on Instagram and Twitter. So,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
it's-
okay.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, you gotta get the branding, man. But yeah, that's gonna be it for Bitcade. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye. Alright, so can you give me a list of those AO games? That way I can go play them.
Yeah, I'll send them over in like a PDF for you there.
Alright, cool.
The ship before it's completely
Go over
overrun
there.
by Covenant.
Oh, there you, really?
What am I?
Look down, and then just spin in a circle. Oh God! Oh God! Your neck is just like snapping. Okay, all right. Let's get back.